Welcome back to It Tastes Like Burning This, Matt.
This is Jesse.
And per the usual, if you ever have questions, concerns, thoughts, theories, inquisitions, or issues, you can always reach out to us at ittasteslikeburningcast at Gmail. You can find us on Patreon at It Tastes Like Burning Cast. Always give us a like, click, and subscribe on YouTube and look for the It Tastes Like Burning Cast. And there's several other places you can find us. And if you're interested in your It Tastes Like Burning thong or shot glasses or flip flops, don't ever hesitate to reach out to us and find us on the merch store.
It's all in the description below.
So we were powering away talking about worldly events and deep endeavors. And then we finally realized we should probably start the podcast. So where do you want to try and start today?
I think we talk about the problems with conventions, conferences, whatever you call it, wherever you're at, right? And attendance and kind of some of the pitfalls of some of that. I think we've got I don't say we have a grasp on the problem, but I think we have some ideas into why and what is causing some of these low attendance issues and stuff.
Well, if you look, I had an opportunity to speak with a really big name in the fire service this weekend.
Call him out, it's fine.
Chief Lasky. And we were talking about this, and his point was, and he's been on the proverbial teaching and speaking circuit for a long time. Okay. The man knows what the hell he's talking about. He's a good speaker. There's a lot to learn, and just on and on. I have nothing but exceedingly good things to say about him. And what he was highlighting is that over the years that he's gone to conferences and lectures and events and associations and keynote speakers and just big wide-ranging speaking events and teaching events, what he's learned is that he's even encountering a downturn in people that are showing up to his classes in participating. And at the end of the day, the question is why? Well, quite frankly, there's so much information available online and through social media and through YouTube, and just quite frankly, from
1,000 different sources,
websites that, and I'm not trying to diminish anything here, but you can get the exact same information if you're seeking information from just jumping online. And the issue is that I don't have to travel. I don't have to pay for a hotel room. Maybe I can't afford any of the associated.
I'm also antisocial and I don't like people.
Right. So I can go watch this powerhouse give me a whole bunch of really awesome information, and I don't have to go anywhere for it. Now, the fact of the matter is that today's time, place, society, culture, we have shifted further and further and further to this. And just short of Super Bowl level of events like FDIC this year had 40,000 attendees.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's two reasons that FDIC's never going to have a problem continuing to have a monster turnout. The first one is that it's the mecca of firefighting. Okay. It is literally a pilgrimage to go. All right. The second one is that it's global. The third one is all the hot and new that's replacing the old and busted is going to be there. So you're going to be able to show up and you are going to be able to see some of the most coolest, most awesome, groundbreaking tech that's possibly conceived in the fire service at this event. So outside of having that,
and with that, you get the most talented instructors, you get the most talented speakers, you get all of those things that go along with being the mecca, right?
Right.
I mean, short of of Jesus himself speaking. That's what you've got. Like it's not me and you being schmucks and having a podcast at a conference, right?
Right.
It's not that. And I think that it's it's this ever evolving thing, and I think some of it, all these everybody looks to that as the reason, but you look at FRI last year, right? FRI was a huge show when I went to it 15 years ago. Last year, it was a show, right? It wasn't.
Okay. So I'll compare FRI last year to what TEEX was, which is the Texas Engineering Extension Services big annual show at the end of July at College Station. FRI was what TEEX was 15 years ago.
Right.
And all I can tell you is that's a bad sign because FRI used to be gigantic.
So I want to dive down the rabbit hole, and Matt touched on how everything's available on the internet. So I think generationally, you take somebody that's my age, I'm bumping on 50 pretty hard. The way we learned things was books and a teacher and going somewhere and learning something. Like there was no internet, right? The internet came along about the time I graduated high school.
We're literally creating a class right now that is watched online for people to watch to review our trucks and learn them.
Right.
That's where we're at.
Yeah.
That is us being hyper progressive. Something as radical as learning the trucks. Here's the YouTube link. Watch the video.
Right. And then
Because,
go watch the video and go stand at the truck and
right.
like compare and contrast, right?
And let's, I hate to bird dog, but we need to go down this path.
Go ahead.
We're going to be radically successful with this. Why? Because it doesn't involve us having to stand there and get our schedules aligned with the student. They can go up there whenever, and we know that they're going to learn what they need to learn to be able to cover the truck.
Right.
And it makes everyone's life easier.
So then, Matt, if you can make all this information available, and that, let's realize everybody that's a Gen Zer, that's the only way they've gotten information for their entire life
Right.
is the internet. They know no other way.
Right.
They know nothing about social networking, in person, human interaction and networking, because everything was done on their phone or in social media in some form, right? They're measuring their friends by how many are on the internet, not by how many people they actually
Right.
give
Yeah.
hugs to on
Yeah.
a daily
They
basis.
literally have a counter to
How
tell
many
them
hands
how
they
awesome
shake.
they
Yeah,
are.
how many hands they shake, right? And in our age group, shaking hands and physical interaction and talking and discussion we're still an important part of that
Right.
equation, right? That's literally how we're able to sit here and record this podcast, because we learned how to have a conversation at an early age, right?
Right.
Have you tried to have a conversation with a 19-year-old lately?
Oddly enough, I have.
It's challenging, isn't it?
The word I like to use is frustrating.
Yes, it's frustrating.
And for clarity, I'm 41, soon to be 42. So, like, the generational gap there is colossal, and I'm not a fat Moses. I can't split the Red Sea and make that gap.
Right. But intrinsically, there's so much value in that. How do we, one, convince the yep, had some leakage there. It wasn't anal leakage, but
Yeah, no, my fuck went everywhere.
so how do you convey the value in that human interaction to a generation that doesn't understand it?
Ooh. So
Big question, right? Big question.
so this is getting to the real deep part of why I would argue why we're successful. Because at the end of the day, everyone, particularly under the age of 30, thinks they're an introvert, but they're actually not.
Right.
And what they find is that they need human interaction. And then on top of this, and it's a lot more so on the medical side, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to physically have patient contact. Okay. And I realize that's not for everyone. Okay. But the people that really excel at patient contact, oddly enough, they do really well on the firefighting side. Now, there's just, at the end of the day, it's easy to explain. There's just certain things you can't watch a video on.
Right.
Okay. And in the student, your Gen Z, they're not going to argue with you when we say, hey, we're going to hold your mitten and we're going to go into this burn building on our training field together. Oddly enough, they're going to expect that. That's the crazy part. Whereas if you go to the millennials, I know the doom millennials, I'm telling you, the millennials are the ones that actually screwed everything up. That's my
Maybe
generation.
the boomers, right?
Probably is.
Yeah.
Gen X, where they would kung fu panda roll off the truck and cartwheel in without an instructor. They'd just be like, "Yes, go."
Well, that's because we raised ourselves under a bridge in the woods, right?
Right. Whereas Gen Z is going to sit there and be like, "Wait a minute, what about the checklist? See the safety checklist? Did you do all these?"
The Geneva checklist?
Yeah, different discussion.
Different one.
Same concept, but different. And God bless us. I don't know how many people will get that joke. There's going to be at least 3 people that are
That
laughing
understand
at that.
and laughing at that.
So, but Gen Z's going to expect you to go through that checklist.
Yeah.
And I mean,
And explain every single thing on that.
right. And if you don't do it, you're actually losing, arguably, you're losing the most important thing with that relationship is confidence and trust.
So you're 100%. And so how do we get back to who's attending conferences? And we're going to pick on the State Firemen Fire Marshal Association of Texas right now.
Because we're very intimately familiar with it.
Right. And we love this. We love this organization. Means the world to us. We want nothing but success. But
And we want to see it succeed.
who attends that conference?
I think I was the youngest person at that conference by 394 years.
There was a few young people. There was people younger than you that I did interact with. But for the most part, it is people my age or older, right?
Right.
So 50 plus.
I
And
think you're doing yourself such a disservice there because the average age was, let's be realistic. We'll be kind.
142.
We'll say 70.
Yeah, no, it very well could have pushed to that level, right? And so those people are not the consumers of information, right? They're they're the deliverers of information. Correct?
I would say
Just generalities. No, can't look at an individual. That's
you're being nice.
I am being really nice.
I'll be nice. Yes. Okay. At the end of the day, it's a bygone era where they are desperately clinging to something that doesn't exist anymore. And my 1-2 punch on this is you have a lot of people there that not only haven't been a part of a department for a long time. They're not part of a department for a long time. And
or
they're not even remotely in the realm of making decisions that affect the department.
or even if they are, let's just assume that they are the department leadership, right? And if their source of where they're going to get affirmation for their ideas is more people just like them,
Right. It's an echo chamber.
it
But
becomes that echo chamber, right?
but the sad fact is that it's not that. It just isn't. It's not even in the realm of a adequate reflection of the modern volunteer fire service in Texas. We really do. We need to dig in on this. For the love of Christ, we have a 19-year-old man that's a fire chief that we're working with right now.
Right.
Okay? I'm sorry. He is better connected to his current membership than if you took that 19-year-old
Peepaw
out
Jones.
and you put a grandfather in
Yeah,
there.
Peepaw Jones.
I know of one fire chief. He he's been fire chief for so long he can't remember. Okay? That's how long he's been fire chief. He thinks he was fire chief, elected chief in the early 70s. Okay? His entire department below him, I swear to God, if they're over 40, there's none. I think 30's the number I want to use. I would argue that he's, strangely enough, one of the most progressive fire departments in the United States, but it's not by choice. It's by circumstance. He has to do it. Two reasons. One, he cares about the organization and he listens to his people.
I would argue to be in that position, he cannot be a micromanager. He has to be allowing the people that are good at what they do what they do. Am I correct?
I don't know him that well, but I feel very confident in saying yes.
Yeah, he's not the guy standing there with his thumb. He's just pointing the ship at a direction and saying, "Onward, ho, ducky, ducky, let's go."
Right.
Right? I think there's outliers, right? And one of the things that Matt and I run into all the time, and it's this crazy realization that we've had here lately. We're the anomaly, but I still think we're not the anomaly.
Yeah. It's really weird. It's hard realizing that you're the unicorn.
Yeah.
That's the
Because
problem.
you know the potential's there for anybody to do what you're doing.
I will say this. I think the other thing that really screws up our that's the wrong way to face it. We're in a very unique county in a large state that's wholly VFD. And we have some other really, really strong VFDs that are direct neighbors to us.
Yeah.
We work with them daily. And it gives us kind of a different perspective. Bias, you can call it whatever. But at the end of the day, and I hate saying it this way, but it's the only way to equate and make it relatable. Our weakest department in our county would be in the top 1% anywhere else in the state of Texas.
Yeah, without a doubt. Not
Probably 0.5%.
well, we travel so much and we're at all these locations, but we see that. Well, so going back to how these conferences, how do you convey to that younger generation that TikTok is not the only way and are the best way to forge relationships,
So,
to
so
build
but it's one step
organizations.
further than that. What you have to have is that you have to have a conference where you somehow or another manage to grab everyone under the age of 30 and you have to get them to the conference. Okay.
Eh, Yeah.
And they need to publicly speak.
I
Okay. Because I don't know how to do this other than threatening people with life and limb and forcing them to show up to speak their mind. But that's the only way. I truly
I'm
think
gonna
that would work.
I'm gonna be the devil's advocate for a second and think about what a conference means to a young working person, right?
Right. But we were talking about that beforehand.
Right.
That what we should do is put a pause on this and call one of our members.
Well, let me just sum it up. So I watched a deal about this the other day. In, let's just call it 1990, the median income for a family of three was $80,000, and the cost of living was $79,000. And these are just made up numbers based upon this case study that I watched a video on. So there was a little extra there, right? Today, that median income is like 96,000 and the cost of living is 118.
Right.
So literally, and this fights against everything that we're asking people to do, right? And I acknowledge this. We acknowledge it in our department. Like, your life and your family come first, and your livelihood. This place doesn't pay your bills. And the lack of extra time that people have just because shit's expensive, right? This is accelerated since 2020 for all intents and purposes. This is accelerated to the point where, like, 2, 3 jobs is not uncommon. How do we capture their time, and then how do they take off from those 2 or 3 jobs at the same time to go to a conference? And what's the value in that? How do they see the value in taking the time off from making a living and serving their communities to attend this conference?
Well, I'll make it simple. There is no value.
For the
Okay.
most part,
There is no value. So what you have to create
is the value.
is the value. So it now
And
you
what was valuable 20 years ago to a Jesse starting out in the fire service and thinking, oh, I can go over to that booth and I get a cool free glove strap and a wedge, is not the value today,
right.
right?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, what you have to parse out in that is what is value. Okay. It's kind of like the discussion that we have on compensation. Okay. We sit here and look at compensation as a direct pay for our time on the organization. Compensation doesn't have to be that. I know of a department now in Wyoming, very expensive part of Wyoming that has a volunteer fire department. They needed membership. They couldn't get anyone. What they did is they bought apartment buildings and they put up apartment buildings and they said, "Hey, if you cover X amount of calls per month, you get a free apartment."
Right.
Okay? That's value. That's value. I know of another department that is talking about providing health insurance, person and family. That's value.
And all of those things are still cheaper than the staffing equation.
Period.
right?
And at the end of the day,
And I hate to sound like the cheapskate in the deal because I'm not, right? I'll fucking spend money like it's going out of style. But the citizens like our community, oh son, you start talking about 100% increase or a 75% increase or a 56% increase
in taxes,
in taxes, boy, the brakes get hit so hard, like the whiplash breaks your neck.
right? Yeah, I mean, so again, what's the value of the conference? If they don't have a perceived value, they're not going to attend.
Right.
Now, what
Because
we're
my
t-
value is not their value,
right,
right?
and it is. I mean, I assure you, that we don't have an answer on the back end of this. Okay, but I'm telling you, the value isn't what the current status quo is. That I know. How do I know? Because it keeps dwindling. Sponsors are pulling out, attendance is low, there's no value into it. And let's be honest, let's be really, really honest. Do we want to recruit boomers right now?
No,
No. Do we really want to be recruiting Gen X right now?
not really.
No. You have got to figure out how to connect with millennials, and me at 41 is the very beginning of the millennials, and realistically, the Zoomers,
They're back.
Gen Z.
And you better be starting to think about the alphas, right?
They're coming.
They're coming.
Next day
This
you wake up, they're there.
this is happening. By the time I'm gone, they'll be hardening the mix
And it is. It doesn't matter if it's a state level that you're trying to figure this out
or a
or at a
local.
local level. It's the same thing. I mean, at the end of the day, as much as we make the statement that firefighting's free, cool, and addictive, and I mean this, and it's nothing against our older members, but if you're 75, I need 20-year-olds.
Right. And
I
I think
just do.
I think that the enigma that's around the Pandora's box on how to get the young people in the door to become members of the department, we've cracked that code. That's easy. We're way past that,
Yeah.
right? How do we ensure that like their associations that they're members of and these trade things that they do and these conferences they should be going to actually matter to them, right? For us, the association, the State Fireman and Fire Marshal Association, to our members actually means a lot. They don't realize it, they don't understand it, but it means a lot to them because that's where that certification comes from.
Right. But the second, if we ever theoretically turned off the tap,
It wouldn't mean anything.
no, I would argue is the second they would understand and then immediately come out with claws flying. They
Yeah.
may not get it, but once they fully understand it, it's Katie bar the door.
Yeah. Oh, I can see that. I can see that sentiment in it. Like they don't they're not going out of their way to read supportive documents or understand the programs or any of the things that
Ooh, okay. So
any of the things that I would have had to do to actually have a clue as what was going on because the only thing I had was reading the book.
right, but I'll counter this. We've already made's the strong word here. We are in the rolling over of the generational shift.
Right.
We're trying to control it. Okay. For lack of better words, They expect it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
100%.
Not understand it, expect it. And we're meeting the expectation. And we're doing that through results given. Okay.
Right.
So for our younger members, we are meeting any of their challenges, expectations, standards. They don't want to know about it. They don't care about the minutia in the background, but it's being met to their standard.
Well, they've never had to think about the minutia in the background.
Yeah, but they never had to think about it in high school either.
Right. That's
Or
what I'm
middle
saying.
school or elementary.
That's my point exactly. Like, it's always been, here's the expectation. So if the expectation becomes,
Ooh. Hold on though. Real quick though. Who made the expectation?
they did,
They did. They don't know where the hell it came from.
but they did it.
Yeah, they did it. They don't know what it is or how it happened. Okay. And maybe that's our great luxury in this. Maybe it is. Maybe that is the answer. I
They
don't
did.
know.
And
But
and I'll elaborate on this story, right? So we made this deciding factor that, hey, we want to become an ISO2, right? A lot of stuff that goes into that, right? For 100% volunteer department to bounce into an ISO2. And one of the things we needed was people to become certified, right? That made points on this equation. And so we went to the handful of people that it was easy to make happen. Like, they had the training, like there was some testing they had to do, there was some other things that needed to happen, and we went to those people first and we convinced them, hey, help us get this done. It's going to be good for the department. And then just threw it out there that, hey, if you're a new person, you can do this.
right.
And the first couple do it. And then 6 months later, they're like, nope, everybody does this. This is what we want. And
Right.
it's like, amen. Congratulations. Thank you. Because I didn't have to push that forward as my idea.
Yeah. Because theoretically that should be a landmine for us.
Yeah. And the membership. And
Expected it.
it was the young members that pushed that forward as what they expected everybody to do, because that was the standard. That was the place we needed to be. And I had this discussion with another department earlier this month about, they were talking about how to do it. And I'm like, make the young people, make the new ones do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the new ones will make the old ones do it. Because the old ones are going to be like, them young whippersnappers ain't getting one over on me.
Well, it's the most beautiful. Gen X is going to be, or Gen Z is going to be the savior of our lifetime,
Mm-hmm.
because Gen Z will sit there and be like, "Wait a minute, who the hell are you bitching at me about this? I've done this. I have this. I have that. I did that over there, and I went over there and did this. I have this. Who are you to be challenging me on what I have?"
Yeah, and
It is incredible to watch it happen.
the whole tipping point in my mind is we had this young Gen Z kid that, all he wanted to do was drive an apparatus.
Right.
That's all he wanted to do. And the boomer that was over the top of him just kept moving the goalpost.
Right.
Like, he'd move the goalpost and say, well, you need this class. And the kid would go take the class. And then, oh, well, now you need this. And the kid would go do this. And one day I'm in there reviewing training records, and I'm like, oh shit, he's got that certification, pay for that. He's got that certification, pay for that, pay for this one. And then I hand this kid a stack of certifications. And guess what he's got? More certifications than the guy that's telling him no and moving the goalpost.
Right.
Well, how do you argue with that at
You
that
don't
point?
You don't. We had a damn officers meeting today, and we are trying to figure out as an organization how to stop people from involuntarily covering 11 calls in a row. Think about that for a second. How awesome is that?
Yeah.
That we had 5 people on one truck, left for a call, and came back 7 hours later
After
after 11
11
calls.
calls.
Okay. And I have an officer that thinks that's a problem. Jesus. What? I don't, what do you say? No? I mean, it feels like it's a Geico commercial. It's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
Now, there was a few of his arguments that held some water, right?
Different day, different calls. Don't get me
Right.
wrong. This kid screwed up.
Right. There was a few of these arguments that held some water and the appropriate apparatus and blah 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 blah. Right. And our whole gerrymandered sector is messed up. And
I can't wait for these quick attacks.
yeah,
It's just Jesus.
and it, it's a convoluted disaster. But he had some valid points. But the problem is not seeing the forest for the trees. Right.
Whether the forest is on fire or not. Just God.
We did what we were supposed to do. We covered the calls. And
And let's go down this a little bit further. Again, a 5-man crew covered 11 calls straight. Okay. Every single person on the truck was certified. Every single person on the truck had every single possible imaginable certification that you'd expect for someone that's, I don't know, 10 years or less on an organization. And we have a problem with it. Not to mention exceedingly high trained in other areas. Because again, we had someone just continually baby seal clubbing them. And all that poor person did is kept their head down
go to school.
and kept going to school. And the problem is this son of a bitch has more certs than I possibly have now.
Yeah.
Now, I say that with a little bit of hyperbole. I got him beat. If he keeps this up, he might beat me in another 4 years. But, I mean, why are we intentionally keeping people that want to protect the community and make themselves better
From doing that.
from doing that?
So great topic, great discussion, but I want to get back to the whole how do you get the young people interested in the conference? And I know you go to a ton of conferences, right?
Unfortunately.
And last year you went to half of them in Texas. And we went to one in Louisiana,
Yeah.
right? So I'm going to go down the list and just ask you what age demographic was at some of these conferences. We'll start with the big ones, the SFFMA.
Uh, older.
Teaks.
A perfect mixture of older and very young.
Okay. Safety.
Younger to middle.
Uh, Taffy this year.
Middle to old.
Fools.
Much younger. Couple old guys, but younger.
So of those conferences and looking at the scale of what the conference was meant to be, what would you say had met its attendance expectations?
TDEM, Texas Department of Emergency Management. safety. Uh, I have no clue what that stands for, but that's the ESD.
Yeah, State Association of ESDs. I
Yeah.
think.
Um, we could throw the Texas fire chiefs in there also, and understandably, that's going to be middle to older.
And it's a smaller
Mm-hmm.
expectation, right?
Yeah, I mean,
What about the Fools? Do you think that was as big as they hoped it would be?
no,
Really?
yeah,
Because I would have thought it would have been the other way around.
yeah. I was actually surprised. Uh, give me a few minutes on this. So I am very anti fools until I went to that conference. All right. They had some fantastic speakers, and a lot of what they were talking about was preparedness, pride and ownership, do your job, know your role, but not in a negative connotation, and public service. I would argue that going to at least one fool's conference is a huge benefit to any young man or middle-aged man that is going to do interior firefighting. The total conference, though, was very poorly attended.
Hmm.
Oddly enough, don't get me wrong, it was dominated by career individuals, but there was several volunteers there. And I mean, talk about swagger. Little itty bitty volunteer department, kind of in the area of where you're from, starts with a W.
Okay.
Swagger. Okay. That guy was 40 plus, overweight, not remotely in physical condition at all. A son of a bitch was proud of what he did, and he took his service to the community serious. And it was kind of awesome to see that. And then I also talked to a bunch of young career guys that really, really, really cared about their communities, and they really wanted to go out and kick ass and take names. And they took their job very serious. And you want to talk about maximum impact? Those guys, maximum impact. Here was the kicker on that Fools Conference. Every single person that had attended it, they had to pay for it out of their pocket.
Right.
Okay. I think for me, that's probably where I got my eyes opened. Is I'm like, oh, you guys paid money to be at this.
Right. And took time off work.
Took time off. A couple of them did. And it's like, oh, nope. My bias is that, and it needs to come off.
So, in the world of these conferences, and I'm going to use this term very loosely, right? Does the celebrity of the speakers matter?
Ooh,
And that's the term. The celebrity is the term I'm using loosely. And leave us out of this equation because we're not that. But Rick Lasky, Chief Lasky, does his celebrity matter in that? Does firefighter Fenton's celebrity matter in that?
I would argue no. I
I would
really would.
argue that I think like FDC firefighter Fenton more than you, me, or Lasky.
Well, don't put us in the same category as Lasky.
Or Lasky and Salka.
So, there we go. So,
Brucini.
well, it'd have to be his sons
Yeah.
because Brucini
Right.
passed. But I think Sulka and Lasky pretty easily could fill a 500 person room. That's it. Instructor's name.
Right.
Okay. Here's the instructors. No one cares what the class is called.
We can fill a 5-person room. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
put that out there.
Maybe 7.
Maybe.
Okay. But I think if you actually title the class right and you hit what they're actually trying to learn about, I think you may inadvertently, by pure chance, increase the participation in the class by just putting some time, energy, and effort into trying to come up with a class name.
So yeah, class name, promotion of it, blah 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 blah. Right. All that stuff matters. So I'm traveling the state teaching this fire department marketing class, right?
Right.
Great class. My biased opinion, probably the single most influential class on the face of the earth. My biased opinion. And it's not because of me, it's because of the other instructors fabulous, right? I'll divert all attention away. Great class. I have to go find people in the hallway and say, hey, come on, come do this. You won't regret it. And fortunately, none of them have regretted it yet, or they at least don't tell me they regret it. They wait until they go home and tell their wife, that was horrible. That guy's an idiot. But it's so weird. And I think in the career side, a chief that's trying to leave his imprint on a department and a legacy has an open door for the most part to do things like that, as long as it's something that's not so far out of the realm of reality that it's not acceptable, right?
Right.
I think in the volunteer fire service in our world that's a whole nother story. I think that to leave that that imprint on the organization and fundamentally change what we've done for 100 years is a lot more difficult, because in some cases it's literally 100 years.
Ooh. So, yes, here's the kicker. Who's the single most influential volunteer chief in American fire service history?
Matt Hohan.
Let's assume it's not. Okay. The fact of the matter is volunteer.
No one knows who we are.
No one knows. It doesn't matter. So you need to be prepared to die, and no one cares. And it's okay.
Yeah.
Paid? No, it matters. But volunteer? No one cares.
Yeah.
So you better not be doing this for legacy. You
Right.
better be doing it for the betterment of the organization and your membership.
To me, that is the legacy, right?
Well, yes,
But
but
my biased opinion, right?
we're one of the few organizations that might be able to get a building named after you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the Jesse Slaughter outhouse has such a fine ring to it.
Yeah.
Hay storage barn. I might could deserve a hay storage barn.
The gas distribution facility.
Right. Because I can distribute gas.
So, I mean, don't get me wrong. Legacy's all about it, particularly at chief level, and anyone who says it isn't full of crap.
Right.
But you can't be making decisions based on legacy.
No,
No one cares.
no, and maybe I phrased that wrong.
No, you didn't. You honestly didn't. It's just I'm taking a swipe at the dinosaur chief who won't leave
Right.
because it is a legacy issue.
Right. But when do you build your legacy? This is a real thing. When is the time frame that somebody's going to build a legacy in an organization?
I would argue with how many people show up to your funeral.
No, there's a time frame in your tenure at that organization that a legacy will be
Time
built.
frames 5 to 7 years.
Yeah. Yeah, the first 5 years. If you haven't done something prolific in the first 5 years that fundamentally changed operationally how the organization worked, uh, demographically how the membership was,
Right.
how the percent of calls per member, there's 100 different markers, right? If you didn't do that in the first 5 years, you're not the guy. Period.
No.
And if you did it in the first 5 years and you're holding on for year 37 and you haven't done anything since, you're not the guy either.
No. So when I was meeting with Chief Lasky this weekend, the effective time frame for a chief is 5 to 7 years.
Yep. Undoubtedly.
That's it.
That's it.
And the fact of the matter is it doesn't matter if you're building rockets at year 12. No one cares.
Yeah.
So I got bad news for you, Jesse.
Yeah.
This is my 5th year. So giddy up, Buttercup. Year 7, I'm going to turn this glorious project over to you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a thing. Like I understand that. I've stayed too long before. Stayed in a position too long. And I saw the effects of staying in that position too long. And it wasn't my complacency. It was the department's complacency to challenge me on things.
Right.
And that challenge to push me to go farther, right? I think that's a problem, and it takes a special person to understand that and realize when that's happening, and either force the conversation or force the deal, or simply say, "Hey guys, it's time for somebody else."
Right. Well, let's keep going on that. It goes back to you and what you say. At the end of the day, what's our responsibility?
The organization train our replacements.
Train our replacements. Good, bad, or indifferent. Now, I will say this. In the next 2 years, it's really year. There's some really big crap happening with our department. So
I also feel like if you don't become stagnant, right?
stagnant's a big part of that.
if you don't become stagnant and you continually chase the better for
Right.
the organization, I think that time frame, that 5 to 7, can live longer than that. But man, that's a tall order for any human.
Yes. Here's my absolute biggest fear and confession. I am unique. I don't have a family.
And you fart rainbows.
Yes,
There's a unicorn horn,
occasionally.
right?
So I feel so sorry for whatever poor bastard
Well,
replaces me, because the fact of the matter is they have a life
the
and I don't. And
I
it
for our organization in general, I truly believe at some point that yours and my positions will have to come with some level of compensation, because the time sink into it is just going to be to the point where you'll starve somebody to death, or you'll get the retired guy that really just doesn't have the gumption to do it.
I we're big enough that yes.
But that comes with a whole nother set of problems and a whole nother set of
Right.
worms. And like, I'm not advocating for that, definitely not at this moment, but I think that is a logical progression, right?
We're pretty big.
We're above average, right?
Okay. I I don't know. Like I said, I'll leave it at this. I don't have a family. Alls I do is work and have the department. That's it. If we're going to talk about legacy, that's it.
Yeah.
That's all I have. I don't have children. I have my newest members joining the organization. Luckily, they're not wearing diapers, but I want to see them succeed.
Yeah.
And I want to see what I can make of them. And I want them to become the absolute best volunteer firefighter that they can have.
So circle back, and we're getting long in the tooth. Ways that organizations that do these conferences and trade shows might think out of the box. I've got a handful of things that I think could be tools in the toolbox to improve attendance, right? I think one thing you can do is attract the people that already have the following.
There's that.
Bring instructors and classes that already have a following, whether that be Chief Lasky, uh, It Tastes Like Burning, Andy Starnes. Like, there's a whole pile of these guys, right, that already have a following. And most of them, when I'm saying following, most of them have a social media, external media type following in the fire service, right? You could bring those kind of people in and place them into a role to help their following come to your conference, right? I also think as part of that, you don't pin them into a time slot that's unrealistic.
Right.
If they need 8 hours, they get 8 hours. If they need 4 hours, they get 4 hours. If they need 37 minutes and 22 seconds, they get 37 minutes and 22 seconds, right? Uh, I don't think everything's a 1 hour or 1.5 hour or whatever block.
Right.
Some things are just worth the time, right?
Yeah.
I think location plays a huge role
Yeah.
in some of this. I think that the cost plays a role in it, especially on the volunteer side, right? Because you're not only the cost of the conference, you're the cost of losing work for 3 days, 5 days, week, whatever the situation is. I think the cost plays a role in it. I think that kind of just the ability to have a voice in whatever association or organization that's putting forward the conference, right? And I'm going to use State Farm and fire marshals for this thing. So you can go to this conference and some of you will get to vote on things that matter for you. Some of you will not. But at least the old retired guys are all going to get to vote.
Right.
Right? That's actually a problem. And regardless if they're all going to vote the same, the 20-year-old and the 80-year-old, regardless if they're going to vote the same or different, it still hampers someone's buy-in to the organization, right?
Yes.
So you've got to not only build value into the conference where it has value, where it's worth the money that you're going to spend. You got to build value into the member of the association or organization that's going to go to the conference. You got to build value into the conference itself, the classes, all those things. And you've got to kind of meet people where they're at, right? We talk about that in the marketing classes, that you got to go get them where they're at. And that's why we use the social media and stuff. But same with the conference. It can't be on the four corners of the earth. It has to be where whatever the majority has the access to go to.
Right.
Right. So centrally located versus the far edges of the state. Texas is a big freaking place. Right.
Yeah. Texas has a real problem with that. Like, I'm sorry. You can't have this in El Paso, Amarillo, Texarkana,
Corpus.
Houston, Corpus, Brownsville,
Yeah. Doesn't work.
Laredo.
Doesn't work.
Like, terrible idea.
Yeah, if you're 30 minutes or an hour from the edge of the state, not the right spot.
Right.
Although I'm all for it if it's within the hour and a half that I am from the edge of the state, right?
Right.
But it's not the right thing. And there's a lot of factors that go into figuring out all those things, and it's such a complex problem, right? It's not, well, here's the answer, check this box. It doesn't work like that. So I think there's a handful of things that you have to address. There's a handful of things that you've got to actually put the thing into. And I'm going to go back to this kid, and I'll call him a kid because he's in his 20s, that I work with at my part-time fire job. He just went to FDIC. Department paid for him to go. He went with Gene. When we were talking about it before they left, when I was on shift with them, he didn't actually know what it was.
Jesus.
Right? Had no clue. And he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but he's also not the dullest.
Right.
He's just a normal kid that's kind of lived in his little kid bubble and is starting to venture out of it. But for him to not understand what kind of opportunity it was for the department to send him to that and what the value was to him for his future in the fire service is just staggering. Absolutely staggering. Like I said, good kid, great kid. just a normal kid. That just exploded my brain. Of course, we gave him a whole rash of shit and made fun of him, and it's normal. Literally, for my first shift ever at this department that I went to work for, picking on this kid. But he likes me now. No problems. Good kid.
Is he gonna be a new applicant?
Lives a little. He's on the wrong end of the world. He'd make a great volunteer at a couple of departments that I know that are a lot closer to him than we are. Really would. Good kid.
Okay.
Doesn't know what channel locks are, but we'll excuse him.
Well, I think that this is as good a spot as any.
You
to
got
wrap
any?
it up.
You got any recommendations, thoughts, ways to make it better?
I really need to piss.
Go in the suit. That's what the astronauts do.
I'm not wearing a diaper. Shit.
Anything to add off of what I said?
You're either gonna adapt or die. And I do mean that. You're either gonna adapt or die. Figure it out or die the death of 10,000 paper cuts. That's it. We'll slowly continue to suffer, or you'll grow, develop, blossom, and send new seeds out, grow, develop, grab, or you'll die. It's just the way it is. It's a new age. Figure it out.
Yep.
And you're either going to sit there and be suffocated or you'll figure it out. That it's hard. It's real. You'll sit there and blame everyone. Oh, the community doesn't want to do it. Oh, those damn kids. They're the ones that are at fault. Or you'll figure it out.
I'm going to say the most misogynist, terrible thing in the world. And it got told to me 1,000 times. If it was easy, women and children would be doing it.
Right.
Right. But guess what? What do we have in our department?
Women and children.
Right.
Okay. The other part of that is I say, if you want to volunteer and make it easy, go to the Red Cross.
Yeah.
They need people too.
Yep.
It's literally that. It's not hard. It sounds stupid. Firefighting's like smoking cigarettes in the 50s. It's free, cool, and addictive. If you can't sell that,
something's wrong.
Become an ESD. Put 3 people on staff to cover 10,000 square miles and write your fate off.
Yep.
It's just that. Sorry. It is what it is. Sorry.
Well, with that,
we said some highly controversial things today. If you ever feel like correcting us, find us at ittasteslikeburningcast at gmail.com. You can always find us on YouTube at It Tastes Like Burning Cast. Go ahead and give us the old like and subscribe. In the description, you'll find the merch store. We can give you your personalized thong, flip-flops, shot glasses, or candles.
at least 2 or 3 of those things.
Okay.
But yeah. Yep. No, we definitely have candles. I wish we could make the candles smell like a burnt trailer house.
That'd be
But
awesome.
it's you get to choose what it smells like. And that's not one of the options
Yet.
I am working on that. But
outside of that, this Matt
This is Jesse.
Have a good evening.